Today's Don Shula's birthday. He'd be 92 today. Happy birthday, Shoes. Great Don Shula. Season was dedicated to you, and it was an utter flop. And it all died on the vine against the Titans. Really, I had said a few weeks ago before the big run, it was dead. But not technically. But now it's officially dead. And all I hear is stories. We didn't prep for the weather. We were outcoached. Tua sucks. Flora sucks. The defense sucks. Lots of things suck. But the two things that are the most critical aspects I hear, nary a peep. Little bit about one, but near nothing about the other. One's an all-field issue. Those who watch for a while, you'll know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to deal with that because I'm going to dial in. This is going to be the first part of a deep film study of the Titans versus the Dolphins. And I'm going to distill it down to its most quintessential and fundamental conclusion and point where the issue lies. And then ultimately, I'll track that back to the source. But I rarely said this. I don't think I've ever said this. But if you don't agree with me on this one, you don't know the game of football. Not because I'm a rocket science or a genius or whatever. But when I present this piece to you, its mind-blowing magnitude should make every other issue pale in comparison. Is Flora a perfect coach? No. He might be hard to get along with too, likely. Is the defense perfect? No. Get into that another day. Is Tua a perfect quarterback? No. He might be average or above average. To me, he's a system quarterback, which is not a bad thing. There's really some really good quarterbacks came out of his system. Bob Greasy was a system quarterback. But he's not garbage. But it pales in comparison to what I'm going to say. And you guys have watched for a while, you know. You know what I'm going to say. I said the last podcast. It's going to boil down to the offensive line. And some people, most people understand and agree, but maybe not to the magnitude that I've said, but I'm going to, when I present what I'm going to present along with the film, I think you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah. And those are some who say, you know, but they'll focus this, and say, well, if we had this, or this, nothing is even in the ballpark of value to our success or reason for our failure as this offensive line. As I said, I'm going to present a stat. I pinned it in my last podcast as a comment, but I'm going to rephrase it, represent it, and then wrap a nice bow tie around the context. At the end of it, your mind should be utterly blown. And when I've been saying 45th best offensive line in football, this stat, this totally puts the stamp of approval on what I've said. I say 45th best offensive line in football because they're 13 spots worse than the 32nd worst offensive line in football. I want to present Sun Tzu's Art of War because it's a key principle that's been carried for thousands of years. Football coaches use it, business people use it, everybody should use it. It's tried and true, much like the value of the offensive line, even though somehow it gets muffled in the modern media, the voice of the modern media. Now, Sun Tzu talks about 9 grounds. There's 9 different circumstances, and each circumstance dictates a response, a specific kind of response. And if you don't respond to that circumstance, you're likely going to lose. Let's attach this. You're a coach. You're going into an opposing team's field on a short week against a team that has double the amount of rest as you do. The wind's blowing 15 miles an hour, which is pretty strong. 20 is really strong, but it's pretty strong. Rain's coming down. Not heavy, but substantially. What are you going to do? Well, theoretically, the Titans screwed up, and the Dolphins were geniuses. Theoretically. In the first half, the Dolphins called 3 wide receivers about 6 times. I counted it up. Didn't have any particular stat. I'm a monkey, so it's probably not going to be exact, but it's close. They called 2 tight end set, a big formation, 5 offensive linemen, 2 big tight ends, 22 times. Brilliant. It's hard to block. It's hard to stop blocks. It's hard to make cuts. Hard to throw the football in this kind of weather. Big formation run. Titans, they're going to have to come out big to stop us. No, they don't. Titans were idiots. They brought their 4-3 look against our big formation once. And the rest were nickel and dimes. They called nickel 19 times against our big formation on a rain-swept field. And they shut us down. Now, their nickel was 4 defensive linemen, 2 big linebackers. They played shell coverage with the cornerbacks playing zone 8 to 10 yards off the ball, safeties in the middle, looking straight at the quarterback. This is a formation and scheme meant to stop the pass. And then they would bring a safety in to play that extra linebacker, who in this case was 190 pounds. Now you'll say, well, obviously, look at how he ran, how Duke ran the football. Duke had a couple of big runs, is what should happen. He had big holes, is what should happen. Duke, on 2 occasions, as I said last week, got a little impatient and decided to do an OJ and go down the line of scrimmage instead of putting his nose into the hole. Not the end of the world, but helped us not make it there. But basically, he was in a big formation against a small formation, had big holes. But the bad part is when the Titans said, no mas. They let us run, and then they let the reel go, and they snap it. And they said, that's it. And they were able to shut us down in their nickel with their 190-pound safety in the box. When we ran the ball after some success, we'd have 1-2 runs, and then we'd go, oh, run again. They'd shut it down. And then our OCs, who are nervous Nellies, would just go right to the pass. This shouldn't be. It's mind-blowing that they could run nickel. And the worst part is they opened up in nickel. And when they saw our 2 tight end formation, they stayed nickel. So the game plan was, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take away the pass. We're going to play a shell coverage in zone. We're going to rush 4 guys on the line. We'll bring a safety in the box to play the linebacker. Totally stifle the pass. It's raining out. And we're going to stop them with our small little guys. And we'll get pass rush with our 4 guys. Are you insane? No, they were smart. They saw the film. They knew we had the 45th best offensive line in football. There's no way on earth this should happen. Part of it was the offensive coordinators are nervous Nellies. They're green. They were thrust into the position because they had to find somebody to replace Gailey, who was basically chased out of here by Greer. What happened? I'll tell you later. I don't got time for that. Who put 2 in? Who forced 2 in without consulting Gailey? They're a little skittish, but they're also clear, just like the Titans. They know they have the 45th best offensive line in football. In fact, after the first drive, when Jackson got his penalty, he was benched, and they brought Kinley in. And people like me were wrong saying, oh, anybody's better than Jackson. Sadly, this is not true. Kinley came in, and his short arms, trying to block, has to dip his head to get fit, to get that impact, and his big belly pulls him forward, and he can't see anything, and he got beat on a stunt, and it put huge pressure onto it and forced a very big play to fail, and they pulled him out real quick and put Jackson back in. because they were desperate. Robert Jones, who I thought maybe could fit in there, watched him against the Jets, too raw. So you got the 18th overall pick, who's been moved from tackle to guard, got benched because he was bad. He's been terrible all season. Then you bring Kinley in, who you spent 2 fourth-round picks on, who's too heavy, too slow, 2 short arms, and 2 fourth-round picks. Then you pull him and put Jackson in, who didn't do well. And then you got Eichenberg next to him, who you used a second and a third, the third to move up 1 spot ahead of Cosme, who went to the Washington, who's a top like 25 guard as a tackle as a rookie, to get Eichenberg, who's got 2 short arms, too slow of a kick, doesn't look like he's strong enough, which is weird. He's not a tackle. He was drafted as a tackle, but as soon as he got here, the staff evaluated him as a guard. But because we suck so bad, we let Flowers go. We told Karras we don't need him. And he had to play right guard, right tackle. Then he had to play left tackle, and he can't play. He's terrible. And then Dito, you spent a 3rd-round pick on. You waited all these years. This guy should be an all-pro by now. I mean, if you don't wait this long, he should come out like on fire. He's a good pass blocker, and he's good in the double. He helps us, but he's terrible. He's weak, and he's terrible in run block. Hunt has gotten better. I like the direction he's heading, but he's not a tackle. And Davis sucks. Davis has been screwed just like so many people in this Dolphins organization. The guy was an undrafted free agent. He's above average talent who's been moved up and down the line all over the place. When he's a left guard, he should have been there. Should, oh, wow, we got a cheap left guard. Put him at left guard. Let's sit him there, get all the other spots we need, and if we find somebody better along the way, we can replace him. He's a good swing man. That's not what we did. Oh, you know what? He's real cheap. Let's put him at tackle. He can play all over the place. And you'll say, Flores. This was happening before Flores. So this really aims at somebody else. Flexibility. People who talked about we didn't prep and we should have done something different. You're totally right. We were inflexible. We were always inflexible. But why? Because we can't run the football. We're forced into 12 personnel with 2 tight ends, 68% or 65%, which is like 3 times the rest of the league, because we can't handle our protections. We can't run block with a lot of extra help. We run RPO, run pass option. We can't run the football worth a darn. So we got a PO offense. We can't be flexible. If we were flexible, we would have just had, all right, let's just run the football. They're in nickel. Run them out of nickel into 4-3. Then you run your play action or you pass to Waddle. We couldn't do it because the offensive line's that bad. It's the worst offensive line that I remember in 42 years, like by a mile. It's not hyperbole. It's not exaggeration. Not only are we terrible in starting talent, but the depth is even worse. And we've overpaid. Paid through the nose. No coach, no offense, no team can succeed like this. Yes, they can. If you had the right quarterback and you had okay. Top 7 teams going to the playoffs. I'm sure they're going to prove it out, right? They're going to prove it out. So, Titans, 2 pretty good tackles that are balanced. They both can run block and pass block. Center, same thing. Guards, struggle in pass block, but very good run blockers. Totally fits the Titans' identity of run first. And by the way, running the football and a quality offensive line brings consistency to an offense and consistency to a team, play after play, game after game, season after season. Why are we always inconsistent? Offensive line. So they got the offensive line. They're AFC champions, soon to be, with our sucky quarterback who was asked to do what Tua is doing, which is throw the football, not play to his strength, no offensive line, and no run game. Wow, Groundhog Day. Repeat, right? So Tannehill gets traded for a 4th, and he went to the conference championship 2 years ago, and now he's, as a piece of a team, won the AFC. Kansas City, remember when they got blown out? The great Mahomes, generational, eviscerated in his second Super Bowl. Totally blown out because he had two major injuries. The offensive line was garbage. Andy Reid decided not to run the football. He wants to play fun ball. And the guy was beaten to death. And he looked like garbage because he sucks. No, because his offensive line was garbage. But what did KC do? They got Louis Nang late in the draft in 2020. Now he's a starter. He's like, not great, but he's way better than any of our tackles. They traded for Orlando Brown, who's like a top 32 kind of tackle. They got Wiley, who's been filling in. He's around Nang's level. We dream of that. They got Joe Thuney, who they traded for. He's top 10. Trey Smith, who they drafted late in the draft this year. Late. He's starting, and he's a top 20 guard. And they got Creed Humphreys, who they got in this draft, like in the third round or late second. Number one center in the league. Totally destroyed offensive line, and they rebuilt it in a year. They're stupid. Not as smart as our guys. Well, we'll get into Flores. He's not in charge. It goes back to Greer. Herbert is super talented. Probably better than Tua because he can fit in more schemes. Tua, to me, is a system quarterback. Tannehill's a system quarterback, and he just won the AFC. Do I think Tua sucks? No. I don't know what he really is. I know he's not sucky, and I don't know if he's elite. Somewhere about average to above average at this point, but it's still early. But Herbert, who's so much better, should be able to do so much better with a much less line. Slater in the 12th spot, who he could have had with an extra pick. Top 7, top 8 tackles in the league right now. Elite run blocker, elite pass blocker. They got Storm Norton, who's I wish we had They got Ibushi, top 32 guard. Feeler, top 10 guard. And they went out and get Corey Linsley in free agency. Too good for us. We got Dieter, number 2 center in the league. Their offensive line, these two teams' offensive line is like heaven to hell difference compared to our offensive line. Bengals, Burrow, clearly a better quarterback than Tua. Clearly, obviously. Even if you're a Tua fan, you got to know. That's not a knock. This kid's generational in my mind in many ways. His brain, I mean, this kid's superstar. Jonah Williams, finally paying out, top 20, tackle. Riley Reef, who they got, veteran. Solid. Solid's like genius to us. Isaiah Prince, who we got rid of. 330 snaps, playing better than either of our tackles. Jackson Carman, they drafted, He's better than Jackson. Got him in the second round. Quentin Spain, former Bills guy, top 20 guard. It's better offensive line than us by far. By far. And they got a great run game. And they got a better quarterback. But they still had some inconsistency. Notice how Burrow took the beatings that he took. Notice been up and down. As that offensive line improves, the rest of this team can get consistency and accentuate their talents. But still, pretty good offensive line, right? So that's 4 teams, including Titans. Bills, elite quarterback. Anybody who says he's not elite's out of their mind. They have an average offensive line. Injuries brought them a slightly below average. But what's their season been like? Partly because Dable doesn't like to run the football. He likes fun ball. He tries to do fun ball when the offensive line's beat up and on average offensive line, and a great quarterback struggles. Up and down. Colts, we already know that. Nelson, he's not as good as because he's been injured, but that offensive line really good. I'm going to detail that. Pats. Matt Jones. Rookie. They've been doing pretty good, right? Offensive line's elite. All the other teams in the AFC have questionable offensive lines by like 1 or 2, but they have real issues around them. But they're not going anywhere. The teams that are going someplace either have an average offensive line and an elite quarterback, and that's one, and the rest have all kinds of talent and stuff, but then they have a very good offensive line to an above average offensive line. There's consistency in that, in the run game. We struggled. We couldn't run a nickel off the field in a rain-swept field. 190-pound guy. This is totally unacceptable. We couldn't even protect when they were rushing 4 guys. You'll see it all on the film. I want to go into all the laundry list of things around Greer's purchases and all this other stuff. I'll get that later. I'm going to focus on this game. There's nothing more paramount. You'll see Tua missed some balls. He the 2 fumbles, but it only really turned into 3 points. He had a rollout where he threw it and he missed. Short, could have made that, but why was he rolling out? A couple other plays that he could have had, 2 or 3. But you'll see time and time again, 2 receivers going out with either Eichenberg, either with Smythe or Gesicki, and 6 defenders. Totally blanketed. Zone coverage like you wouldn't believe. And he had to do this in rain and wind. I don't care who you are. Remember Dan Marino throwing in the snow? It drains the pass game. Flores sucks. What was he going to do? What could he do? He's hamstrung, just like the OCs, who they're not, but why are they here? Again, why are they here? Why is Gailey gone? Again, we could deal with that in all day. The whole team, the game's won in the trenches. We hear that all the time. Games won and lost in the trenches. We have the 45th best offensive line in football. I'm going to do this tape. I'm going to show you abundantly clear the coverages. I'm going to show you the situations, and you're going to see. Tua could have had a better game, but the framework was insanely poor. And just like Tua was hamstrung by this offensive line, the coaches were hamstrung by this offensive line. The defense was hamstrung by this offensive line. This franchise has been hamstrung by a poor offensive lines. Offensive line builds consistency, so is the run game. But again, what has been the philosophy and who has been here? Who dictates? I'll get into all the particulars later. I don't want to go on too long. So this is the setup. Titans went nickel against our big, and we couldn't run them off the field on a terrible weather day. Everything after that has merit, but it's light years away from the focus. It's Curtis saying thank you for staying to the end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Comments mean the most. Love comments. I believe in truth and community. Catch you next time. Get ready for the film. It will be clear. It's Curtis saying be well. See you very soon. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with AceParade.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.